The European Union has placed planned countermeasures against US tariffs on ice for half a year to allow for more negotiations on trade. All this delay affects around $107 billion worth of American goods, ranging from aircraft to bourbon. The bloc reached a trade deal with the US just over a week ago, with Washington having its threatened levy to 15%. The European Commission's trade chief says talks have been ongoing and constructive, and that he is working with US officials to put last month's framework agreement into practice. And for more, Will Denselow joins us live from Brussels. Will, that was EU's trade chief Maroš Šefčovič there saying constructive work continues between Howard Lutnick and Jameson Greer, that's the Commerce Secretary and the Trade Representative, but still plenty of turbulence ahead for relations between the EU and Washington.
That is absolutely right. And we heard from a European official a little earlier speaking to the press, saying that this framework trade agreement is essentially no reason to celebrate. It is not the outcome that the European Union wanted with the United States. They have long maintained that tariffs are taxes that hurt economies on both sides of the Atlantic. They want to see tariffs closer to zero. However, the EU has been very clear to say that considering the fact that the option was a trade deal or the risk of, as Donald Trump threatened, 30% duties, that Maroš Šefčovič and others would have essentially, as they put it, halted trade between two economies that account for around 30% of global trade. They say that is essentially the best of a bad situation. Now, it's estimated that roughly 70% of European exports heading to the United States will be subject to this 15% blanket baseline tariff going forward. The EU says that that is already in effect. Now, interestingly, there has been plenty of pushback, plenty of criticism. Germany's finance minister, for example, in recent days has said that the EU didn't negotiate hard enough with Washington. The EU has been keen to say that even though the baseline tariff of 15% is higher than the likes of the UK, as far as the European Union is concerned, they argue, in fact, it is a better deal. The rationale behind that, they say there is no stacking. So while the UK, for example, might have a 10% baseline tariff, that does not mean that a product heading to the UK to the US will just be 10%. It's also subject to other duties that add on and could be much more than that initial 10% figure. With the EU and their deal, they say that is not the case. That is why they say it is a deal they're at least satisfied with. However, talks, as you rightly mentioned, do continue. The EU is pushing for more carve-outs, more exemptions from this 15% baseline tariff. Some huge sectors at play still, the likes of the wine and spirits industry getting cars sent from roughly 25% duty down to close to 15%. So these are some key issues that still need to be negotiated with the United States.
Oh, thanks. Will Denselow, they're looking at a trade deal that still needs to be finalised before it is in fact executed. Will Denselow reporting live from Brussels.